Our family has been torn apart by grief and the endless questions that haunt us every day. Why?
On Wednesday morning, the Clark County Sheriff's Office got a call from someone who was walking on this rural road in Washougal. The caller described what they believed to be two life-sized mannequins down an embankment near a creek. But when deputies arrived on scene, they discovered two bodies.
It was a Sunday morning, the kind that smells like coffee and rain, but by nightfall, a family's nightmare had already begun. The call came in just after sunrise. A worried grandmother, her voice unsteady, panic rising, told Vancouver police that something was wrong. Her daughter, Meshay Melendez, and 6-year-old granddaughter, Layla Stewart, hadn't answered their phones in days. No texts, no social media, no word, nothing. Not even a goodbye. They don't just disappear. The grandmother told police, "My daughter would never leave Layla behind, and Layla would never miss school." But they had, and by then, they were already gone. Meshay was a woman with fire behind her eyes, a loving, fiercely devoted single mom. She posted videos on TikTok, dancing in the living room with Layla, lip-syncing to their favorite songs. She wasn't just a mother, she was Layla's whole world. And Layla, the kind of little girl who wore cat ears to class, colored outside the lines, and believed her mom was the bravest woman alive. On the night of March 11th, Meshay and Layla were last seen alive. Not in a strange place. Not in a dangerous part of town. They were staying at a friend's apartment, and they weren't alone. They were with Kirkland Warren, Meshay's ex-boyfriend. The relationship between Kirkland and Meshay had always been rocky, off and on, tense. But recently, she'd let him back in. She said he was trying to be better. She believed he had changed. But the morning after that visit, Sunday, March 12th, there was no trace of them. Meshay didn't answer texts. Layla didn't show up to school. Her kitten, Rocky, didn't come home either. That silence stretched for 6 long days, until Meshay's mother took matters into her own hands. And what she found shook her to the core. In the Van Mall neighborhood, not far from where they'd stayed with Kirkland, she spotted Meshay's car. Parked awkwardly, doors shut, no movement inside. Inside the vehicle, her daughter's purse, untouched, abandoned, no keys, no sign of Layla, no sign of Meshay, just a gnawing void, like the car itself had been left there to disappear in plain sight. That discovery changed everything. When police questioned Kirkland, his story was vague. He said Meshay dropped her own car down the block, that he simply gave her and Layla a ride back to it that morning. She drove off, he claimed. That was the last time I saw them. But something wasn't right. Something about the timeline, the tone, the stillness in his voice. Meanwhile, the community was already holding its breath. This wasn't just a mother and daughter gone missing. This wasn't just a cold trail. This was beginning to feel like something else. People started whispering. They began to speculate. She didn't run away. She didn't just vanish. Someone knows something. Police doubled down. Search dogs were deployed. Surveillance reviewed. Cell towers pinged. Still, nothing. But behind the scenes, detectives were already unraveling a story far bigger than anyone expected. Because what started as a search for a missing mother and daughter would soon uncover a history of lies, violence, stolen money, and blood. They were seen driving off together in the early hours. That much was true, but everything after was a lie. The last confirmed sighting of Meshay Melendez and Layla Stewart was under the dim orange glow of early dawn, climbing into a burgundy Dodge Charger with Kirkland Warren, her ex-boyfriend. Kirkland, who Meshay had recently begun letting back into her life. Kirkland, who said they were working things out. But Kirkland had secrets. Just hours earlier, The three of them had stayed the night at a friend's apartment, a woman named Jo, a mutual acquaintance. According to Kirkland, it was a peaceful night. They talked, slept, reconnected. He told police they left together the next morning. She parked her car down the street, he said. I just dropped her and Layla off so she could go get it. Case closed, right? But there was one problem. Joe's story didn't match his. According to Joe, Kirkland left, but came back shortly after. And when he returned, something was off. He pulled up, blasting music, she said. Meshay was in the front seat, and she wasn't moving. She was slumped against the door, unconscious or worse. She wasn't wearing pants, and she didn't respond when Joe called her name.
I guess first of all, how you holding up? You can, okay. Because we're here in jail, I'm gonna read your Miranda rights. So, I'm a missing persons detective, okay? I also do a few other things like cell phones and computers. I'm a bit of a geek, but part of me being a geek is I also have to do missing persons. So in my missing persons investigation, Joanne told me at some point in the night of March 12th, she saw you with, is it Meshay or Misha?
Meshay. There was no talk about going anywhere. We went out. Well, initially we came over to Joe's house because she was a mutual friend.
Okay.
Came over here, like, this is real my girlfriend, so.
So you guys went over to Joe's because she's a mutual friend, right?
And we were literally just going and talking, be together, and we slept together that night, every day.
Back in the interrogation room, detectives tried to peel back Kirkland's layers. He was calm, too calm. But investigators did know what was going on. And every day, the digital trail he left behind was unraveling faster than he could hide it. On March 12th, the same day he claimed Meshay and Layla simply drove away, Kirkland tried contacting her. Not through calls or texts, but through Google Duo, a method that leaves fewer traces, a method that's harder to verify. And even then, she didn't answer, because by that point, she couldn't.
So, I'm sorry, she left her purse?
She left her purse.
Okay, so she left her purse in your car?
Yeah.
Okay.
But literally after that, Joe, even then, I had tried to, I didn't call on her regular phone. I called up to Google Duo, and that's because she said it was the safest. Called her Google Duo, she wasn't picking up.
And this is because she's missing, right? Like you were trying to get a hold of her and you couldn't.
I mean, it wasn't a big concern at first.
Okay.
Like I literally just thought she was just ignoring me for a little bit or something.
Why did he still have her purse? Why was her car found abandoned hours later? And most damning, why did he later access her bank account, transferring $4,200 to himself? This wasn't a breakup. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was premeditation. Then came the most chilling revelation of all. Police seized his Charger. Inside, shell casings, a blue tarp, and blood, later confirmed to belong to both Meshay and Layla. That ride Kirkland spoke of, it wasn't a ride. It was a crime scene. He continued to deny, to deflect, to dodge. He tried redirecting blame to Meshay's ex-husband, claimed he had taken Layla before.
Where would you go looking for? And again, if I find, I'm likely going to find Meshay, right? So, where do you think they're hiding out at? Where do you think they would go? Where would she want to be?
I don't know. The only, like I said, again, I'm not trying to point fingers or anything. Her ex-husband really took and wouldn't give her back for a couple of days, and we had an issue with that. So
When was that?
this was like sometime last year, maybe.
But police had already cleared that lead. And Kirkland's story? It was full of holes. Because from the moment Layla got into that car, her fate was already sealed. 2 days later, Kirkland would appear in court. A no-contact order had already been violated. He was arrested again, and police were ready to confront him one more time. This time, not just about a missing mother, but about a child, and what they believed he had done to both. They weren't just connected by a man. They were connected by a crime. And one wrong transaction would unravel everything. Behind the disappearance of Meshay Melendez and her daughter Layla was a shadowy trail of money, manipulation, and betrayal. Because Meshay wasn't just a mother and a victim. She was entangled in something much darker. Now let's rewind. Late 2022, months before the murders, Monet Tyler Warren, Kirkland's wife, was working at a credit union in Portland. On paper, she was a bank employee. But behind the teller window, something else was going on. That November, $20,000 disappeared, transferred from legitimate accounts to one opened under a fake name. Investigators would later find that Monet's login credentials had been used to change account information. The new recipient, Meshay Melendez. That's right, Meshay, Kirkland's ex-girlfriend, was directly tied to the stolen funds. And it gets worse. On the same week that the transfer occurred, Meshay was caught on camera opening an account at the same credit union. Not alone. She was seen exiting Monet's car, the wife and the ex-girlfriend. Both women. Both tangled in Kirkland's life, and now tangled in the same criminal scheme. So what brought them together? Just coincidence? Or was Kirkland orchestrating everything from behind the scenes? Kirkland would later claim it was Monet acting on his behalf. He told police he needed money, that Meshay agreed to open a bank account, that Monet, still his wife, helped transfer the funds. He painted himself as the puppeteer. But the strings? The strings were fraying, because around this same time, Meshay disappeared from social media. She stopped posting, stopped sharing, stopped dancing with Layla, and her last two posts both featured Kirkland. Coincidence? Or a subtle cry for help? Was she going dark to avoid scrutiny? Or was she trying to disappear before someone made her disappear? Then came the legal dominoes. Monet was caught. She was arrested and charged with first-degree theft and identity theft. But instead of pointing fingers at her husband, she admitted it. She told investigators that Kirkland asked her to do it, that she was just following orders, that she was afraid. Was she a pawn or a co-conspirator? And Meshay? Her role in the scheme never fully came to light. But her proximity to the crime and to Kirkland may have placed her in a far more dangerous position than she realized. Because just weeks after the financial fraud, she filed a report, a domestic violence report. Meshay told police that Kirkland had assaulted her, that he'd fired shots through her balcony window. She was terrified. She wanted protection. She wanted out. But a month later, she changed her story. She recanted, said it was all a lie, blamed mental health issues, said she made it up. Why? Fear, manipulation, or something even more dangerous? Because here's what we know. Kirkland had a pending murder charge in Arkansas. He was out on bail. He had violated a no-contact order just days before Meshay vanished. And now, two women were tied to the same man and the same crime. Anath, this wasn't just about love. This wasn't just jealousy. This was about control, about money, about power. And for Meshay, it may have been about escape. Because once the money was gone, once she tried to pull away, once she stopped playing Kirkland's game, she and Layla disappeared. Money, lies, violence. Was this personal or something far more sinister? It was an act of terror, and it wasn't the first time Kirkland had shown his rage. Meshay filed a formal complaint, alleging domestic assault, harassment, and drive-by shooting. She said he tried to scare her, or worse, silence her. Police responded, they investigated, and they believed her. A friend of Meshay's, who was present that night, corroborated the story. It was real, it was terrifying, and it was almost enough. But just weeks later, everything changed. In February 2023, Meshay reached out to investigators again. Only this time, she recanted. She said she had lied, that she and her friend had substance abuse issues, that she had mental health struggles. She discredited herself, erased her own voice, and begged police not to arrest Kirkland. Was it guilt, fear, Manipulation? Experts in domestic violence recognize this pattern all too well. Victims often backtrack out of fear of retaliation, dependency, or threats. Meshay have reported him, but then pulled away. And the system took the bait. Still, March 2nd, 2023, Vancouver police arrested Kirkland Warren. The charges were serious: second-degree domestic violence assault, drive-by shooting, harassment, possession of a stolen firearm, false statement to law enforcement. The judge was given a risk assessment. Kirkland scored 31 on a scale of 1 to 18. He didn't just exceed the scale, he shattered it. And still, he was granted bail, $100,000, but with one caveat: he was ordered to have no contact with Meshay. The courts issued a domestic violence protection order. She had tried to protect herself. She had asked for help, but in the eyes of the system, she no longer counted. And in that gap, he found his moment. On March 12th, just 11 days after his release, Meshay and her daughter Layla vanished. And by then, it was too late to rewind the clock. She warned them. She told the truth. And the system ignored her cries. So many asked, could this have been prevented? Could Layla still be alive? The courts thought Kirkland was just a domestic issue. They didn't know he was a ticking bomb. A passerby thought they'd found discarded mannequins. What they found instead was pure horror. The call came from a remote back road outside Washougal, Washington, just 30 minutes from Vancouver. A local resident was out for a walk when he spotted something strange near a creek bed. Two shapes, unmoving, too lifelike. He called it in, unsure of what he was seeing. He thought maybe someone dumped mannequins. But when sheriff's deputies arrived, they didn't find plastic. They found tragedy. At the bottom of that slope, two bodies. One adult, one child, lying close together, unrecognizable at first, but heartbreakingly human. It didn't take long to confirm what many feared. The remains belonged to Meshay Melendez and her 6-year-old daughter Layla Stewart. Both had been shot in the head. Meshay once, Layla twice. And there was something else, something worse. Layla had also been sexually assaulted. The autopsies revealed a cold, calculated double homicide. Meshay was found partially nude, her body covered with a blue tarp, a tarp later traced back to the trunk of Kirkland's Dodge Charger. Layla still wore her favorite shirt, the one with the kitten on it, a symbol of innocence, now drenched in loss. The pain rippled instantly through Vancouver and beyond. 2 lives gone, a mother who tried to protect her child. A child who trusted the wrong man. There was no denying it anymore. He wasn't a suspect, he was a killer. And what haunted everyone the most was the order of the violence. Detectives believe Meshay was killed first. Her body was in the front seat, lifeless, pants removed. Layla? She was alive when the car pulled away. Alive, and sitting beside her dead mother. Later that morning, Joe, their mutual friend, gave Layla's kitten Rocky to Kirkland, unaware Meshay was already gone. Layla trusted Kirkland. He'd taken her to school before. He wasn't just her mother's ex. He was like family. She got into the car and never got out. Hundreds gathered at Esther Short Park days later. Vigil candles flickered under the gray Washington sky. Photos of Meshay and Layla danced in the wind. Children wept. Teachers held hands. Strangers lit candles. Everyone asked the same question. Why was he free?
Where did you live before you lived here?
He wasn't just violent, he was already a killer. And somehow, no one stopped him. To understand how Meshay Melendez and her daughter Layla ended up in a shallow ditch in rural Washington, you have to go back 6 years, 2,200 miles east to Pine Bluff, Arkansas, because that's where the blueprint for murder was written. In November 2017, a 57-year-old man named Curtis Urquhart went missing, recently charged with second-degree forgery and theft of property. but he never made it to court. His body was discovered 2 weeks later, lying in a ditch, shot in the head, mutilated by wildlife. And the last person seen with him, Kirkland Warren. Warren was 22 at the time. He claimed he and Curtis had an argument, that Curtis demanded money. Kirkland said he feared for his life, so he did what he always seemed to do. He reached under the seat, pulled out a gun, shot him in the head. But here's where it becomes sickening. Warren didn't just kill Curtis. He Googled how to do it. His search history revealed the following: how to get blood out of a car seat, how to beat murder, killing the only witness, how to get away with murder. Premeditation, clear as day, and yet he was arrested, charged, and released on $250,000 bail. He didn't run, he relocated. While awaiting trial for murder, Kirkland moved to Vancouver, Washington, where he began a new life, new job, new family. But his violence followed him. In 2020, Vancouver police confiscated a stolen semi-automatic handgun from him. 1 year later, he lied on a background check to purchase another. The gun purchase was denied, but somehow, he got another one anyway. The same gun authorities believe he used to shoot at Meshay's apartment and to kill Meshay and Layla. On March 17, 2023, an Arkansas judge finally revoked Kirkland's bond. Too little, too late. By then, Meshay and Layla were already missing. 5 days later, they'd be found, disposed of the same way as his first victim. Shot, dumped, forgotten. It wasn't just history repeating. It was murder on autopilot. Prosecutors argued the similarities were too exact to ignore. Shot in the head, transported in his car, left in a remote ditch, covered in wildlife damage, followed by digital cleanup attempts. This wasn't a crime of passion, it was a pattern. When finally cornered, Kirkland tried to shift the narrative. He told investigators he gave Meshay a pistol for protection, that Layla's death was an accident, that Meshay shot her, then herself. But the ballistics didn't lie. Layla was shot twice. Meshay's body showed no gunpowder residue. And most damning, Kirkland's texts and Google searches days prior. He was planning something. He just didn't think he'd get caught. 2 women tied to 1 man, and 3 bodies left behind. Unsigned. He pled guilty in both cases. Meshay and Layla's murder in Washington, Curtis Urquhart's in Arkansas. And while Washington has abolished the death penalty, Arkansas has not. But prosecutors didn't pursue it. Instead, Kirkland will spend the rest of his life in prison. But justice doesn't feel like enough, because none of this should have happened.
Losing a child is an unknowable tragedy that's heart-wrenching to think about all the milestones she will never get past.
The air was thick with grief inside this Clark County courtroom Tuesday afternoon.
In the moments leading up to sentencing, the tension was unbearable. You could hear every breath, every stifled sob, every ounce of strength it took for a mother to not collapse on the courtroom floor.
A judge sentenced Kirkland Warren to life in prison without the possibility of parole for killing his ex-girlfriend, 27-year-old Meshay Melendez, and her 7-year-old daughter, Layla Stewart. Warren pleaded guilty last month, just a few days before his murder trial was set to begin. On Tuesday, the victim's family filled the courtroom.
My niece was full of life and potential, taken away in a moment of senseless violence. This has hurt me so much. I barely eat, sleep, nightmares, get depressed sometimes.
Evidence also shows Warren sexually assaulted the 7-year-old girl before killing her.
To cowardly put their half-clothed bodies thrown down a ravine and to make the family suffer for 10 days searching.
Warren was charged with first-degree aggravated murder, second-degree murder, and first-degree child molestation. Outside the courthouse, that call for justice amid dozens of purple balloons, the awareness color for domestic violence.
The judge's words were measured but cutting. Mr. Warren, you have forfeited your place in this society. You will spend the rest of your natural life behind bars. There is no mercy left for you in this courtroom. And with that, it was over. A man who once slipped through the cracks, now sealed behind steel.
And I'm glad that he is getting a consequence that'll never amount to the pain and suffering that me and my family and loved ones have felt since this all started.
I can't even make any more memories. The 7 years was all I had. And it's all because of Kirkland Warren.
People had nothing but loving things to say both about Meshay and Layla. Some of them told me they didn't know them personally, but wanted to show their support in any way that they could after hearing the heartbreaking story of their disappearance and now death.
We're here to have a public vigil and a call to action that the senseless murder of Meshay and Layla did not have to happen.
Meshay Melendez was a mother, a fighter, a survivor. Layla Stewart was 6. She was sunshine, sparkles, and trust in human form, and she never had a chance. Let this story remind us that red flags are real, that threats must be taken seriously, that systems designed to protect must protect better.
Meshay had a restraining order against him, and this is the outcome. That's not right.
We hope something changes. We hope that if a victim comes out and they're scared, that the police do way more than what they did for her.
If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, do not stay silent. And if someone confides in you, believe them. Demand better laws, support victims. Amplify the warning signs before they become memorials. We can't undo what happened, but we can damn sure stop it from happening again. If you hear a cry, answer it. If someone trusts you with their truth, believe them. If the law is broken, fix it. Not tomorrow, now. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay compassionate, and always ask the question that might save a life. This is Crime Gone Viral. Thank you for watching. God bless you.